Steve, apparently there are cancer cures out there that they don't want us to know about.
Yeah, that they don't want us to know about.
And it's all about money. It's always about money. What's happening with this?
I mean, I heard this first probably 40 years ago. And this conspiracy theory is still going around. I got an email just last week from someone convinced that they have the cure for cancer that they're hiding. And the logic is always the same. Pharmaceutical companies make a lot of money off of chemotherapy and treatments for cancer. They want to protect those profits. So even though they have the cure for cancer, they're hiding it from the public. And they're doing it through non-disclosure agreements and threatening and buying off people or whatever.
Like threatening people not to talk.
Yeah.
But aren't they already making, I got you. What you're saying is if they cure cancer, then they don't have the treatments anymore.
They lose all their profits from the existing treatments.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah. So this is wrong on every single level. Like there's so much wrong with this belief. It is the kind of thing that somebody who knows nothing about medicine or scientific research could believe based upon watching movies that are poorly written, that have cardboard villains, twisting their mustache. But when you scratch beneath the surface, like it makes sense on no level.
Yeah.
So let's just talk about the plausibility of it, first of all. Cancer is not a disease, right? It's a category, a type of disease. It's hundreds of different diseases.
Yeah.
Different specific causes, different cell types, different stages. There are solid tumors and blood-borne tumors. There are ones that are encapsulated, ones that metastasize, that go to different locations. So there's all kinds of different tumors, and they require different treatments. Some are sensitive to radiation, some are not. Some are sensitive to some chemotherapy, but not others.
This whole idea, like when people say they cured cancer, we're talking about you have to think.
That's like saying they cured infection. It's not one thing.
Yeah, there's so many different types of cancer that they couldn't, even if they wanted to, they couldn't make one cure.
Believe
for all
me,
of
they've
it.
been working on it. They've been studying. Cancer research is a multi-billion-dollar enterprise over decades, international. There's lots of people working on this, and Cancer treatments have been steadily improving, and new technologies, new ones coming out all the time. And cancer survival is steadily increasing, about 1% per year, is going up. Over the last, 3 decades, we've reduced the mortality from cancer by 30%. That's all been very difficult to do. Cancer is a tricky type of disease to treat. The cancer cells essentially are really good at doing what they do, at growing and reproducing and spreading. That's basically what they do. So, there's probably not going to be one cure for cancer. Right? Just that whole idea is silly.
Right.
Could a single institution or pharmaceutical company have the cure for cancer, or even a cure for a cancer? Right. But then not share it with the world? The answer to that is a definitive no as well. So to understand why, you have to understand a little bit about biomedical research. Most of the research is done by universities, by non-corporate entities, right? Either government funded or institution funded or whatever.
So it's not done by the big pharmaceutical companies.
No, they don't do basic science research, right? That's basic science research is funded usually by government funding agencies, like the NIH would fund, or the National Cancer Institute or whatever would fund that research. So researchers around the world, mostly working at universities, are doing a lot of the foundational research. When we discover, oh, look, this mutation in this type of cancer is what's causing it to grow uncontrolled, or something like CRISPR, like genetic manipulation technology, something that becomes a new tool that we could use to fight cancer. All of that stuff is done at the university level. What pharmaceutical companies do is they're constantly on the lookout for new therapeutic targets, right? Something that they can use to develop a marketable drug, a marketable treatment for, that disease, or that targets that therapeutic target.
Well, how is that exchange of information facilitated? Like you said that the base research where they find novel things that are happening or whatever, it happens at colleges and universities and federally funded organizations. So how does a pharmaceutical company get the right to use their research to progress those achievements?
So it depends. It depends on where the research is coming from, how novel it is. Sometimes a researcher and the university will patent something that's patentable. And I work at Yale University. I don't really even do this kind of research, but at some point, I've been in multiple meetings where the part of the university that is in charge of finding patents is telling us, this is, if you have if you came up with anything, let us know and we'll see if there's anything patentable there, right?
Yeah.
Because of course the university gets a huge chunk of it, and that's how they make a lot of their money.
Yeah.
Right. You make discoveries. Sometimes, you might have scientists that go off on their own, and they have a chunk of money or whatever. They do the research and they come up with something. They patent it, and then they may even do a startup company. They may start their own company to further develop that knowledge into something marketable, a vaccine, a drug, or whatever.
Or sell it to a pharmaceutical company.
Or they can license it or sell it to a pharmaceutical company.
Okay.
Usually, if they start their own company, they're probably going to get gobbled up at some point by a larger pharmaceutical company. What the companies do is that they have a lot of chemists, right? So they have technologists and chemists and scientists whose job is to design a drug that has all the properties necessary to be a medicine, and that will work through that mechanism, which was discovered by the basic scientists working at universities. They hire experts whose job it is to know what's out there and to say, hey, there's a potential target, we should jump on this. Or I've also been on this side of things as well. They will just start trolling, university experts and say, "Hey, you got anything that you think would be a good treatment for this? What do you think?" They pay you a couple $1,000s or whatever, and they say, "Hey, give us the lowdown. Where should we be looking for new therapeutic targets?"
Yeah.
So whatever. There's communication and collaboration between private and public sector, or private and university sector, and and there's also different countries. They have different models because they're not capitalist or whatever. They just have different systems. But here's the thing: the base knowledge exists out there in the literature. The world knows about it. By the time a company gets involved, they don't have the right to the basic knowledge. Like, no company owns CRISPR. No company owns basic knowledge about how certain cancers work and the genetics of breast cancer. They don't own that information.
Yeah.
They don't own basic biotechnology like that. They are trying to get that last step of translational research to a specific product. They're good at knowing how to make drugs that get absorbed well and will last long enough.
They also know about the approval process.
They know how to go through the FDA approval process, or again, whatever other countries have their own approval process.
How about this angle too? As you're talking and you're filling in some blanks that I didn't, have the information for. All right, so like a pharmaceutical company would know that they're looking for this one miracle cure for cancer, right? They would know that they're putting money into their researchers doing it. So why would they be asking researchers to research something that they already know that they're not going to market?
Well, absolutely. So that's the other part is, why would they develop the cure in the first place if they have no intention of marketing it?
And if they patent it, then people would know what the thing could do. So they can't even patent it, which means it's that random scientists out there have the info. Yeah,
so there's just no plausible mechanism by which they would own the information that they're claiming, that they would be hiding. You could, and again, the fact that this conspiracy theory has been around for 40 years, it's always good to see how, conspiracy theories age, because there's always this sense that the truth's about to come out. That's always, every generation thinks like they're the one who's going to, expose the conspiracy.
Yeah.
But, so do you think they knew the cure for cancer 40 years ago and it still hasn't come out or hasn't been rediscovered 10 times over in multiple different, research paradigms around the world? I mean, it makes no sense. How could you? But people have this very naive, quaint image of like a lone scientist working in a lab and discovering a breakthrough that's all by themselves, and it doesn't work that way. Science is collaborative. Have you noticed that like recent Nobel Prizes are always to multiple people? You can't even find one person who's responsible for any breakthrough.
Yeah,
it's always building on the work of many people. People build on other people's work, and it's everyone is responsible for it.
A lot of the people that win the Nobel Prize have a team of researchers that are working with them.
Yeah, of course. There's teams within their lab, but there's also multiple labs collaborating in the literature. It's all being published. I mean, people go to meetings and they talk about it. It's just impossible to keep anything that would rise to the level of like a cure for cancer secret.
Yeah.
Like there's no what they have the secret formula, and if you don't know that formula, you have no idea how it could possibly work. It makes no sense whatsoever.
And even let's have some fun with this. Yeah. Let's say that a a pharmaceutical company that is riddled with malfeasance.
Yeah.
They stumble on, or their researchers do find, hey, oh my God, look at this. It's like it cures a lot of different types of cancer. They have this wonder drug that could do it. What would be their motivation? Would they be motivated to block that? Yeah. To earn money on chemotherapy or whatever?
So now we're getting beyond, like, this is scientifically stupid and impossible, to speculating about the motivations of people working at a corporation. But I agree with you that we could think about that. We certainly can't make the assumption that the executives at a pharmaceutical company would would necessarily want to hide the cure for cancer. So we can imagine a few scenarios. Imagine if company X, who made made a discovery that was years ahead of anyone else, right? Which is what you're basically saying is happening. That they have an option. So we could become the company that cured cancer.
Yeah.
And that will be in our logo forever. Mm-hmm. That's the best PR any pharmaceutical company could ever possibly imagine. We cured cancer, right? You know that that would be underneath their name forever,
right? And
it would be $1 billion treatment. Also, it wouldn't be one specific drug. It would probably be a platform, like a type of drug, and then they would have to spin off dozens, hundreds maybe, of specific variants for every type of cancer, for different modes of administration, for fewer and fewer side effects, or maybe longer lasting. And pharmaceutical companies are good at that. They come out with a drug, and then right as the patent is about to expire, they go, we have the long-acting version of the drug, right? Yeah. And then we have the daughter of the drug that has fewer side effects, whatever. They just keep playing it out and playing it out. That's what they would do. They know how to make money off it. I mean, you don't think a pharmaceutical company knows how to make money off the cure for cancer? It's ridiculous.
Yes, I got it.
Of course they would. They would plow that for decades. That would be a multi-billion-dollar cash cow for decades.
Right.
I mean, there was. And they would own it if they owned it by definition. But the context of the conspiracy theory, they own it. They would freaking own it, right? And I'm sure the federal government. I mean, there are patents run out, but they're willing to give extensions and make deals with companies if it's good for medicine and good for the industry or whatever. So arguing that, hey, we put a lot of money into this and give us a little break on the patent, they probably would extend it a little bit. But anyway, we could only speculate about that. The bottom line is the notion that they wouldn't make money off the cure is ridiculous. Yeah. They would make gads of billions of dollars off of it. So let's say even if not all pharmaceutical companies have cancer treatments, but let's say they did, those patents expire too. So if 40 years ago they had drugs that were about to go off patent, they would all be off patent. They would not stop researching new chemotherapy agents because we have the cure over here. So even if they did that, that would be like a 5 to 10 year thing while they transition to the new drug. Yeah. And they let their patents expire. They don't research new treatments. Yep. You know what I mean? They would just transition over to that. I don't even think that would happen. But if you're being maximally cynical, that's the way it would play out, not forever hiding a multi-billion-dollar moneymaker. The other thing is, would you risk a whistleblower?
Yeah,
now imagine
I was going to say that.
The company that had the cure for cancer.
And they sat on it.
And they sat on it.
Now they're the company that didn't cure the world
that hid the cure for cancer. Man. That's the worst PR you could possibly have. Not only is it bad PR, the company would be done. They would be done. And I'll tell you one reason why. How much money do you think the United States federal government spends on treating cancer through Medicare and Medicaid every year?
I mean, God, hundreds
billions.
of millions.
So let's just say billions.
Billions. Okay.
So then the company that hid the cure would basically have been making that money that they're protecting off of the federal government.
Yeah.
Don't you think the federal government would have an interest in seeing that doesn't happen?
Yeah.
They would destroy that company.
Yes.
They would say, okay, first of all, we're taking that cure. Second of all, we're fining you billions of dollars. Yeah. And don't bother applying for an FDA approval.
Yeah, you're done at that point.
You're done at that point.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there are some companies that their reputation is so thoroughly trashed, they basically have to go away. Yeah. Like they cannot continue to function. And every insurance company would sue them. Every state would sue them. They would be buried under lawsuits. Other countries would sue them. Individual people would sue them. The class action lawsuits would be massive. You're talking, we could make billions of dollars, or we could be sued for trillions of dollars, basically, if one whistleblower who under some laws, could get 5% of whatever the company gets fined, right?
Whoa. I didn't Imagine know that happened.
Oh,
wow.
yeah. Oh, yeah. There are whistleblower incentives and there's whistleblower laws out there. So usually part of the conspiracy is, well, they're going to come after you. They're going to ruin your career. It's like, really? You were the person who exposed the pharmaceutical company, was hiding the cure for cancer. The media value of that in itself would be millions. You would become a famous millionaire. You would be the person who brought the world the cure for cancer from the villainous company who was trying to hide it from them.
Yep.
Come on. It just makes absolutely no sense. It's so completely naive about how the actual world works, in terms of how scientific research is done, how companies work, how laws and regulations work. It makes absolutely no sense. And yet this conspiracy theory will not go away.
Well, you have people who are sitting on the outside of a very complex system, right? You're describing a system that has, millions of people involved in healthcare and involved in all of these processes and everything. Like, again, it's one of those things, like there's be way too many people that would have to keep their mouths shut to begin with.
Yeah, so the conspiracy would also get so big it would collapse under its own weight. And there's been research saying how many people would need to know about this and then how quickly would the conspiracy collapse. And any grand conspiracy like this would collapse very, very quickly, maybe within a year or two, statistically speaking.
Yep.
Certainly you wouldn't be able to keep it going for years. Right. So if you pull it back and say, is there any possible plausibility to any of this? The only little sliver of plausibility I would say is that you might argue that a pharmaceutical company wouldn't invest the research in the first place into a cure that they think was too good. Again, I think that's silly, and I think that's not true, because first of all, they wouldn't know until they did the research, But the thing is, they wouldn't invest down a pathway that they would never go anyway.
Right.
Like, you're not going to put hundreds of millions of dollars into doing all the clinical research into proving that something is a cure for cancer, unless you planned on marketing it. It makes no sense. And once you did, why would you not market it and make the billions off of it?
Why throw away all that money?
There's no scenario. But that's how conspiracy theories work. They're basically just cynical. They just cynically interpret things to make them seem sinister. And they maybe look for anomalies or they ask questions, but they never have to put forward a coherent story with evidence, right? They never make a positive case for the conspiracy. And so, like, spin me the scenario in which a cure for cancer exists and the people who know it exists are motivated to hide it. And you can't do it. You can't create a scenario in which that happens. So, there's also the human element of it, which, I know there are psychopaths out there, but somewhere in the chain of information, somebody has a conscience. Everyone knows somebody who has had cancer. We're all going to either get it ourselves or have loved ones who are going to get cancer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It costs the world a lot of money. The world would be so much of a better place if we had even more effective treatments, something that was actually a cure for a lot of different cancers. So, think of the kind of monster you would have to be to say, I make a little bit more money if I keep this from the world. I mean, it boggles the mind that would so consistently be the case. But whenever I engage with conspiracy theorists who believe this, it's clear that they are thinking of the people who are working at the pharmaceutical company or whatever, like stormtroopers.
Yeah.
They are faceless, nameless, villainous drones. They're not people. They're not human beings. Yeah. They're just, they're monsters. They don't care about people being sick. Like, really? Who is that? Have you ever met somebody in your life where that fits that description?
Yeah.
I've worked with many doctors, many researchers, many people in academia who were administrators. I've worked with people at pharmaceutical companies, and I've never met a single person who was that much of a monster. I can't imagine anyone making that decision, let alone a lot of people over decades making that decision to keep that a cure from the public. So,
well, it's not to say that there isn't some levels of malfeasance that pharmaceutical companies have done where they're raising the prices of things and things like that. But again,
that's a very different thing, though.
It is. I agree.
And that's where the gray zone is in. So, I'm not giving, Pollyannish. I'm not saying that they're all goodwilled and they're making money. Their pharmaceutical companies exist in the United States, in capitalist countries. Their job is to make money, make their stock prices high, make a lot of money for the executives. And they are always looking to cut corners, to market their product in the best light possible to give it the best chance of working in the research. And we need regulatory agencies like the FDA to keep an eye on them.
Yeah.
And we need journalists, to expose things that they do wrong. So there's plenty of examples of
this
that.
applies to most industries.
But this applies to every industry, absolutely. But that's different. That's just by orders of magnitude, completely different than just straight up hiding an effective cure for one of the most, horrible diseases from the world.
Right.
They're not even on the same level. The evidence for one doesn't support the claims for the other, not at all. And so, it's not enough to be cynical. Right? Being cynical doesn't mean you are skeptical or rational or scientific. You have to really think it all through. And yes, there's always some complexity and, it's moral ambiguity and all that stuff. But with this one, the hidden cancer cure, there's just no plausibility to it whatsoever. It's just based on just being completely naive about how the system works.
Look, what I just learned, because I learned a lot from hearing you say, is case closed.
Yeah, I mean,
that's it.
I said it 40 years ago. I'm still will say that that's the case. I would be utterly gobsmacked if it turns out that was true. I'd be so gobsmacked I couldn't even say the word.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just can't happen. The scientific progress doesn't work that way.
Well, it's good to hear, and I'm happy that there's like an incredible amount of evidence. I can very much put that whole notion down, because again, like you said, it's still here. Tons of people believe it. And there's just something about these conspiracy theories that people, they get.
It's the story. It's the narrative. We like to think that there's this evil villain out there, because then that creates the possibility that some plucky rebel is going to go up and take them down. And we're just so used to that narrative. We're trained on it in movie after movie, but that's just not the real world. It's just the real world is much more complex. I mean, if there's one thing to take away from it, from this whole story, is that's not how scientific research works. If you just keep in mind that scientific research is a collaborative effort among many institutions and individuals, nobody could keep the lid on any major breakthrough for any length of time. It's like the pieces all get built up.
Yep.
And even if you did keep one piece to yourself, somebody's going to reproduce it. That's why the other thing that is very common thing to think about is, why do multiple people hit upon the same invention at the same time? Because it was ripe. Mm-hmm. All the pieces were there and they were in the public domain. Anyone could have taken that next step.
Yeah.
And if one person doesn't, somebody else will.
Yeah, like the electric car is a perfect example of that. Tesla was one of the, if not the first real modern company that came out with an electric car. And it didn't take that long for all the other car companies to do it too, because they had already been working on it.
Well, there were electric cars before Tesla. There were electric cars after Tesla. They grabbed a big chunk of the market. They made some innovations, like we're going to put recharging stations everywhere. They have a good connector, but there are reasons. They had good stylish cars. But without Tesla, would we still have electric cars today? Of course we would.
Yeah,
we would still have electric cars today. Nobody. That's the other very similar conspiracy theories, that they, killed the electric car. It's like no one person can kill the electric car.
Yeah.
When it's ready, the market, will take it, and that's what happened. Once the market was ready and the technology was ready and whatever, multiple companies come out with it all independently. They don't have to, like Tesla could not keep other companies from coming out with electric cars, or the fossil fuel industry couldn't keep this from happening.
Yeah, and if they sat on their innovative technology, all these other companies did it. Look at that. Like the
Chinese will produce them. People also forget there's other countries out there. People, it's not all the United States. People sometimes they argue as if the United States is the entire world. It's like they talk about American companies and the government or whatever. It's like, yeah, then why aren't they doing it in China? Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. They would be doing it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
If the technology were there.
Yep. All right. Well, there you have it.
There you have it.
Thank you.